When we're creating our concept diagram, once we've established our concept, we then need to link it to a greater overall concept. So in this case, Civil War is linked to the greater concept of armed conflict. Then we have students brainstorm keywords, anything that's going to be associated with the concept. And students generally are good at this. I like to tell them to turn and talk for a given amount of time and to come up with a list of anything they can think of. After that, we start to look at what's always present, what's never present, and what's sometimes present. This is a good text marking activity where we text mark the keywords and decide where they go together. Then we get to the examples. And oftentimes in our brainstorming, some examples are there, and we have to decide which category they go in. I like to make sure that in my draft I have some particular examples that I need students to know. But as always, as we co-construct, some of their examples might be better, more interesting, or just something we want to include to have student voice in our co-construction. The non-examples are sometimes tricky for students at first, but once they get going, we often come up with quite a few. You want to pair them so that you can see the examples and the non-examples and how they might go together. And then you have the testing ground. The testing ground is a good place for small groups to work together to figure out if these ideas or examples are an example of the concept or not an example of the concept. So here's the duckbill platypus as is it a mammal or is it not a mammal? And through this, they've determined that it has all of the always present characteristics and none of the never present characteristics, so it must be an example. Finally, we're ready to tie down a definition. And the trick to doing that is using box number 1, the concept, and box number 2, the overall concept, and then the always present characteristics and any special rules. You want to have something that's clear and straightforward, but also covers the critical information that students need to have about this concept. Finally, sometimes this can get a little bit tricky and you might need to try a different sequence. We even have a device that puts the examples before the characteristics because sometimes that's an easier way to draft depending on how you're thinking about the ideas. Remember, you always want to co-construct this with your students.